Welcome to the Ballet Help Desk podcast. My name is Jenny, and I am joined by my co-founder, Brett. We are both proud ballet moms who met backstage at our children's recital. During our kids' training, we found that resources were limited, and we relied on dance magazines and fellow parents in the lobby for information. Now that our children are embarking on their professional careers, we are excited to share our combined 20 years of experience as ballet moms with all of you. We will be bringing in experts to help make sense of this complex world of ballet training. As we continue our series on ballet competitions, we welcome Peter Stark, the president and director of the Rock School in Philadelphia, who generously shared fascinating insights on how ballet competitions have impacted the ballet world. He strongly believes that students should focus on the process and preparation of ballet competitions and on the many networking opportunities provided to students and teachers alike. We hope you enjoy this discussion. I do apologize for the audio in our conversation with Peter Stark. My microphone was acting up and my voice was quite tinny. Sorry about that.
We are here with Peter Stark, who is the president and director of the Rock School for Dance Education. Thanks so much for being with us today.
My pleasure.
I wanted to cover an area we'd like to talk about is ballet competitions, because I know you've been pretty involved in those over the past several years.
You've been a judge and a master teacher at so many ballet competitions. Could you speak a little bit to where you kind of see your part in the ballet ecosystem for competition?
My mentor, Bruce, one of my mentors, I had several male mentors in the course of my career as a dancer. One of them was Bruce Marks, who is the director of Boston Ballet. He built the building Boston Ballet is now. Bruce said, the process is the prize. And I say that over and over again. Ballet is subjective. It should not be judged. Why are we doing it? For the process. I think it can be a good carrot to dangle in front of a young dancer to get them to work harder and to have a goal. And it's an incredible networking opportunity for the teachers and for the students. I love bragging about my students, my former students, and I have students dancing all over Europe. And all of those students got those opportunities initially through Youth America Grand Prix, that they went from me to John Cranko School, or they went from me to Royal Ballet School or to Hamburg. From there, launched a career in Europe. And that opportunity happened because of Youth America Grand Prix. And I've had kids win YAGP, the Grand Prix in the finals, and I've had kids get nothing, and the correlation between that and their success in the field is there isn't necessarily one. I'm proud that I've had competition success, but that's not why I do it. I do it as a motivator and as a networking opportunity. And to be quite frank, it's been a networking opportunity for me as an educator and as a arts manager as well.
How so?
We all know each other. I'll tell you a good example. When I was director of Boston Ballet 2 and head of the men's program at Boston Ballet School, a boy showed up from Finland because Mikko Nissen was Finnish. He was exquisite, but we at that point did not have the resources to get him a visa, to get him his education, to get him everything else he needed. And he came, because of the systems were different, he came in the middle of July. So it was late, but I sent 5 other boys to John Cranko, who are now dancing with Stuttgart Ballet. So I called Tadesh and I said to Tadesh, there's a boy here. He has a European passport. He's really lovely, blah, blah, blah. He doesn't have any place to go for next year. Think of the other boys I sent you. He said, give me 24 hours. I said, I can send you a picture. He said, don't worry, just give me 24 hours. The next day he called and said, we'll offer him a full scholarship, everything. He's now with Stuttgart Ballet.
Wow.
He went to the school but it was having that connection for me to think, I can't help this boy, but you know what? I know somebody that can. And that's just one of many stories I have like that. Of the dance world is the size of the tip of a pin. And the more that we know each other, the more we can help each other. Similarly, Stella Abrera from ABT had 2 girls that she wasn't able to move forward. So she emailed me and said, hey, Peter, we have these 2 girls. They're lovely. They're not a match for JKO. Would you consider them for the Rock? Absolutely. Send them down to Philly. I'll take a look. So it's a back and forth with all of us. And the more we know each other, the better it is for these kids.
Is there a lot of that happening behind the scenes?
Yes.
Because that is the interesting part is people say that it happens and other people say it's it's a real outlier and it takes a special kid for that to happen. You're saying no, that you guys really do talk behind the scenes all the time and really do try to find places for as many as possible.
Yeah, I would say those of us who have been at this a long time and then are in positions that we can actually do something. Yes. Honestly, I learned that from, you sort of learn it over time, but one of the people that I admired the most was Galene Stock, who was the director of the Royal Ballet School for a number of years and then sadly died prematurely of cancer. At that point, I was the director of the Orlando Ballet School, and I had sent, I ultimately sent 8 kids to Royal Ballet School, but at that point I had maybe sent 3. And Orlando Ballet School at that point was small. This is in the early 2000s, and she was big. She's like the director of Royal Ballet School. And I'd be in the lobby and she'd come over and say, Peter, how are you? Hannah's doing great. Or whatever. Drew is progressing. It'd take just a couple of minutes. And it made me feel so special. I'm like, oh my gosh, the head of the Royal Ballet School is coming to talk to me. But then I thought, how smart she is. Because then, you've made 1 or 2, you're going to keep making more. It's like college sports recruiting. They're getting more than one offer. So if you make a connection with a teacher, then that also helps. It's up and down the chain. And, I saw that immediately with her. Wow, she's really good at this. School under her, I think, it's still a venerable organization, don't get me wrong. But I think she really made that an international destination for training. She's the one that did that.
Parents don't necessarily know how that all happens. Is there something that parents or dancers should do, like when they go to a ballet competition and they're interested in a particular school? What would you recommend they do to make those connections?
I think number 1, they have to ask a lot of questions. And then I think number 2, they need to be very honest, because what happens is, at these competitions, you fill out a sheet that says, I'm interested in at least 3 of the boys that I sent to John Krenko that are now with the company did not even have it on the list. One of them who became a soloist, Alexander McGowan, he just recently retired. It was like Royal Ballet or bust. And Royal Ballet was like, no, thank you. But then he got the offer from John Krenko and went, and it all worked out. I think you need to be honest, but I also think you need to be open-minded. I always say that you can catch more fish with a net than with a hook. You really need to cast a wide net, because it's not only is there an opening, but is there a match? It's kind of like dating, it's been a long time since I dated, to be perfectly honest, but it is like that. Like they like me, I don't like them. I like them, they don't like me, and then you find a match, but you're in different cities. There's all these different things, and then finally you find something that works, right? Because it's a subjective aspect. It's not just that there's a job opening and you fill the requirements, check.
What would you say to parents who are really unfamiliar? It's their first time doing a competition. How would you advise them to help prepare their child for a competition?
You need to tell them over and over and over again, it's subjective. And it doesn't matter who wins, and that's not why they're doing it, because it really doesn't matter. And there's many examples of excellent dancers that became principals that did not excel in the competition circuit. When you're 15 years old and you've been working for 6 months on a variation and you go on stage, it's hard not to not be called up for the top 12 or to come in second when you dance the best you've ever danced in your life, and you're a good dancer. To constantly remind them that they're doing this for the process, that they're a winner. I will say that early on in my teaching, and I started teaching young, I was in my middle 30s, I think. I had a very successful student who's currently a soloist with American Ballet Theater. And this individual won second place in a major international ballet competition. And I was disappointed because I thought that was a gold medal performance in my mind. In hindsight, I let the student know that I was disappointed. And I think that I did that I was not disappointed in the performance, but I thought that this was unfair. You should have won the gold medal. And that was a bad thing to say, because it shored up that it meant anything, right? Whereas all I should have said is, my gosh, what a wonderful performance. This is incredible. You got the second place. So I've learned a lot too, right? I feel like I'm a better educator than I was then.
I think that's a really good point, that people put so much value on what place you get rather than the process and the experience you get and the connections you make through the process. And I think the more people that kind of talk about that, I think it will really kind of help shift the mindset of ballet competition. So I feel like there's a lot of that.
I want to jump in for 1 second there. Because I'm on the teacher side of it, because I'm a judge, but I'm also a teacher and a coach, and I still do a lot of that. The teachers, it's very emotionally hard for them when they care for these kids and they've put their effort and energy into preparing a kid, and the kid doesn't place as well as they thought, the teachers are often internally disappointed, which is, I've shared that story about myself. And then even if they don't realize it, children are incredibly intuitive and they pick up on that disappointment as if it's their fault. So I think as a parent, you need to be very mindful. It's not that your teacher is bad, but it's a very emotional time for the teachers, and they feel like their work is being judged. So they've spent all this time in this kid, and they feel like, like you've put this kid out, and then somebody says, musicality X. So it's almost like a criticism of you as a teacher. So, and I do feel like that oftentimes the teachers are really like kind of downtrodden after these competition events. And I think parents need to be very mindful that it's not that they're bad, it's because the teachers care, but it would actually almost protect the child away from that, because you don't want the child to ever interpret that disappointment, that frustration has anything to do with them. They should just be praised, and it should be a positive thing, and let's go and have a hamburger or whatever you do after a thing, and move on to the next project.
Sure. I mean, that's easier said than done, though, right? I mean, when you spend so long working on something, and as parents, you're invested in the amount of money you spend. And
this is what parents can do. I will tell you, this year at YAGP, I had a parent whose child did it very well last year and didn't do as well this year. And the parent was so upset and said, this is just new for us. I'm okay. I just feel we haven't had this lack of enthusiasm before. It wasn't even that there was rejection. And I was like, buck up, because the kid can't see this. So I think parents, when you ask what parents can do, parents can hold themselves together, hold their own disappointment together, and take the job to be a parent when the teacher might not be able to. And anyway, the teacher isn't the parent and shouldn't be the parent. So kids need to be shored up in those moments, told that they did great. It doesn't matter if they fell on their face, who cares? And then focus on the next thing. Seriously, go take them to a restaurant, laugh, have a good time. The teacher may or may not be able to do that, but parents certainly have to do that. And if a parent can't do that, then you need to get to therapy, because you're living through your child, and that's a problem.
I think that you also recommend that parents then, if they are disappointed or frustrated with that, schedule a separate meeting with the teacher, the coach, or the AD, separate from their kid. And what do you think would be some like productive talking points for parents?
I certainly think bringing the benefit of the doubt. Whenever anybody goes in, one of the things I did when I was director of Boston Ballet too is teach young dancers how to talk to their artistic director. And one of my advice when talking to a boss is not to say, what can you do for me? But to say, what can I do so that I can enable myself to have X, Y, or Z opportunity? So put it on yourself as opposed to the other individual. So what can a parent do? A parent can say, what can we do as a family to support our child so they're not disappointed? Jimmy's drums weren't as strong. He was doing single tours at 13, and other boys in that category were doing double tours. Is there anything we can do to help him build his leg strength? Putting it on yourself, then it's actually asking, maybe getting advice that you'll use, as opposed to, what can you do to make it better for my child? Or why didn't this happen? Monday night quarterbacking doesn't do anything for anybody. Be future focused and internally focused. But
I think that's great advice. We're looking at helping parents who have younger students. So really building kind of that relationship and making it less adversarial and much more collaborative, helping students move forward.
Big part of my success has been dealing with parents. I remember one of my most successful students. If I say anything about this individual, you'll know who it is. But anyway, a very, very, very successful dancer. And they came to me already successful, having won competitions, and everybody was talking about this phenom. When I first met with the mother, it was almost like a contract. Like, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, and at first I was really put off, because I'm like, but then at the end of the day, once we established the parameters of what I promised I could do and what I wouldn't do, then we moved forward, and we had a really terrific year. And I'm still personal friends with the parents, and I'm personal friends with the kid, who's now married and having a great life and is a big star. But I think establishing communication and also clear guidelines of what the expectations are is worth it. And if someone doesn't want to do that with you, maybe you're not in the right school, in my opinion.
We wanted to kind of go to a source and dispel a little bit of a ballet competition myth. Can you talk a little bit about costumes? Do they really matter? We've heard that they don't, but everyone seems to put a whole lot of stock in them and get these very, very expensive tutus or costumes. And so we were wondering, as a judge, how much stock do you really put in a costume?
I mean, YAGP has changed the dance world. Someday someone will write a book about Larissa Savelyev, who's a remarkable individual, and all of the things that she's done. But certainly she's created a cottage industry with, if somebody's really outstanding, it doesn't matter. However, when you're looking at 300 kids and 298 of them are in costume, it's a little weird when 2 of them aren't. Officially, no, it doesn't matter. But yes, costuming matters. That being said, I think overdoing it can also be distracting. Personally, some of them have so many Swarovski crystals, and some of these high school stages actually don't have good lighting, and it's almost blinding. And it's hard for me to see the dance through the Swarovski. A simple costume can still be extremely expensive, but I would think of something that's age appropriate and simple. But I think the competition that I know best is Youth America Grand Prix. I would recommend wearing a costume simply because the majority do, and it fits in more with everything else you're seeing. But I believe in their rules; it's not required.
If you could change one thing about the ballet competition world, what would that be?
I'd have to think about that. But there is something. It worries me that there are some outstanding teachers that have hung a shingle and they've based their training on competitions. And boy, do they do it well. Their kids win, deservedly. However, those students stay with those teachers often too long, in my opinion, and don't go to the San Franciscos, the Paris Operas, even the Rock, because ballet in its essence is a collaborative activity. We dance together, we work together, and you have to learn in a classroom. I've taught company class since 2000 in a variety of settings, in 7 years at Boston Ballet. A big company class, in a big company where you want to dance, 60, 80, 90 dancers. There's not this one-on-one, like these teachers do. You get one correction, you have to apply. You have to be self-motivated. It goes back to what I talked about with little kids. You have to know how to learn. You have to know how to be in a group. And I feel that it's not seeing the forest for the trees, that they're putting the competition above the overall training in the art form. And even when these kids win, and I will say that in Boston Ballet too, we took several of these kids from these boutique schools that were outstanding dancers, and not a single one made it through BB2 to the company. Every kid we took from Indiana University, which is the other route, not doing competitions, going to college, and one from Juilliard, every college graduate kid was 1 year in Boston Ballet 2, which is a 2-year program, and into the company immediately successful. Every single one. So what those kids learned was collaboration, self-motivation, learning how to learn ballets, learning how to understudy, learning how to be in a group. And even many of them weren't as dynamic pirouettes and extensions and whatever, but they knew how to do the job, because the job is more than the piquita variation. So that's what I would change. It worries me. And these teachers are good teachers and the dancers are amazing, but they're not prepared for the field.
Is there anything that we haven't covered that you would like to share?
It's delightful to talk. I love talking about ballet. I'm a bunhead. So I've said everything, and it was delightful meeting you both. And hopefully we'll speak again.
Sounds great. We'd love to come back and talk to you again.
Yes, thank you so much for being so open and sharing so much. We really, really appreciate it. If you liked what you heard on this episode, please take a moment to help us spread the word. Leave us a review on your preferred podcast platform, tell a friend, and share on your social media. Also, as your dancers return home from their summer intensives, please head over to theballethelpdesk.com and leave us an anonymous review of the program. Help your fellow dance parents by letting them learn all about the good, the bad, and everything in between. To stay in the loop on all of our latest content, subscribe to our newsletter at ballethelpdesk.com and follow us on Facebook and YouTube. Until next time, have a great day.